a Christian, a word I didn't even know when I met him. My name is Claudia, wife of Pontius Pilate. When I was young, I didn't know much about who I was. I had parents who loved and cared for me. I grew up in a quiet neighborhood where my parents explained in their mind, adopted parents. At that time, Tiberius was the emperor of Rome. My mother was wicked. She was severely punished for her wrong choices. At the end of her life, she had been left in a house by the powerful people she had hurt. Without food and water, she died alone. When I was 16, my father sent me a letter saying that I had no good life from my mother's side. My grandfather was the great Emperor Augustus. My father, Sejanus, was Emperor Tiberius's right-hand man, and he arranged for me to marry Pontius Pilate, who was the new prefect of Judea. I was now the wife of a governor and the most important woman in Judea. The Romans made me feel like a princess. I was able to visit Herod's palace in Jerusalem with my husband, and I lived in luxury. Everything in my life had changed. My life had been turned upside down. I had no friends in a new city. I wrote letters to my friend Claudia to tell her about my new experience. I made friends with a family that belonged to the directors of the synagogue. Jairus' wife, Salome, was the kindest friend a person could ask for. She invited me and my son into her home. I observed the way they lived in peace. I beheld the contentment of her 12-year-old daughter, Senna. I cherished that way of life. Sharing their faith with me in the God of their ancestors, in the Holy Scriptures, and in their traditions, they showed me the way to know God. I wrote to Claudia about my thoughts on their God. He was omnipotent and merciful. The Romans did not find mercy, but I was drawn to them. One memorable day, I received word Jairus and Salome's daughter had died. I pushed through the crowd and came to mourn with my friends. But what I saw instead was Jairus telling Jesus, "My daughter is dead, but if you will, she will live." Jesus spoke, "Maid, arise." I saw her dead, and I saw her made alive again. Jesus was God. My husband, Pontius Pilate, was under pressure. He was tasked to tame the rebels. The zealots wanted to separate from Rome. The people in Judea were not used to being ruled. They demanded their own way. They wanted to see the end of Jesus of Nazareth. Pilate was seated on his ivory throne. Jesus, who was standing beside him, had been pitifully mistreated, and yet he was full of peace. The Pharisees wanted Jesus dead because he had corrected them and had many followers. The crowd demanded that Jesus be crucified. Pilate was so overwhelmed with the tide of demands rolling in that he could not turn back. He tried to tempt the crowd's focus away from Jesus by offering to let Barabbas, who was a notorious criminal, go free. Pilate was sure this would move them into allowing Jesus to go free. The crowd yelled, "We want Barabbas, crucify him." I was compelled to intervene. I sent word to my husband, "Have nothing to do with this righteous man, for I have suffered much because of him today in Evie." Pilate washed his hands on the mat, and my Lord was crucified. 3 days later, my friends, who were with went to the tomb early in the morning to care for Jesus' body. They found an angel on the stone that had been rolled away, saying, "Fear not, he is not here, for he is risen even as he said." I didn't have the most normal family situation, but looking back, I can see how God was always in it, directing my life. If I would have not moved to Judea to marry Pontius Pilate, I would not have met Jesus and his followers. The day I saw Christ commended to crucifixion, as I watched the crowd, I thought to myself, I have never seen people so passionate about something. Since witnessing this now, I,